All right. Hey, we're recording. Welcome, everyone. This webinar is called Proving the Value of Marketing. And we're going to start out by interacting and having a conversation with the audience. For those listening to the recording later, if you don't already know, we have a lot of fun here when we're live. And so there is a chat, and it is on fire right now. We're talking football, we're talking locations, we're talking about the Part Out Life Hacks user group. A lot of fun. So if you hear me randomly mention something on those in the recording, it's because we're interacting on the Slack. We like to have fun. And so to start out with, we're going to launch a poll. The poll is, what do you think your CEO thinks about marketing? Or what do you think marketing, what do you think he or she thinks marketing does? Let's look at our choices real quick. So everyone in here, there's a bit of you. We need you all to vote because voting is important. Okay. You might have noticed by now, based on what's in here, you don't have that many great options. Make pretty advertisements, write catchphrases and slogans, send emails all day. I'd probably select that one. Think about what color to make buttons on the website. That's a good one. Oh, that's why everyone's choosing this next one. Next one, all the above. Or finally, none of the above. I'll write my answer in the chat. Let's see. Setting money on fire. Yeah, it's a good one. That's a good one. Anyone else? What do you think? And of course, this is a joke. You might have a really good CEO, but we made it tricky on you. There's only those options on this survey. You're okay. Carla says our CEO came from marketing and products, so he knows a little bit more. That's good. That's good. And one of the things you're going to see when it comes to proving the value of marketing, there's specific actions we can take in marketing, but at the end of the day, it's going to be important that you have leadership that understands or at least open to the value of marketing. Dave Gerhardt has a post he's famous for on LinkedIn that says, "Life is too short to work for a CEO that doesn't value marketing." It's pretty cool. I can't argue with that. But you know what? Let's just make sure that that CEO or that leader, whoever you're reporting to, has the benefit of the doubt of getting the right data, of us actually proving ourselves in marketing. And then they need to be receptive. If they're not receptive to what we talk about here in this webinar, then forget about it, as they say. We need to move on. But yeah, great. Thanks everyone for taking the poll. It looks like all the above wins it. Great. All right, so we're going to do this. We're going to and let's share the results so you can all see that. See, we got to be transparent with the results here, not just me telling you what the results are. All right? So there they are. Cool. Let's get going. Why are we here today? Why are we here today? Well, there's a survey, and this was a couple years ago. So hopefully these numbers have improved, but I don't know how much. There's a percent of CEOs, 80% of CEOs that don't trust. Yeah, don't was hidden by a window here. So I was like, what? That trust? No, they don't trust or unimpressed with their CMOs. I think about that gymnastics medalist who was like unimpressed, the unimpressed meme, right? Or worse, don't trust their CMOs. That's a lot. That's a lot. It sounds like we have some people in the chat that thankfully have one of those CMOs that, or one of the CEOs that does trust the CMO or CMO, VP of marketing, whatever you have in your company, or you may be the one reporting directly to the CEO or the owner or something like that, depending on what size your company is. I've definitely been in those situations. Either way, if that leader doesn't trust you, that's a problem. And guess what the result is? Man, down here, shortest tenure, 3.5 years. I don't even know what a CHRO is. And it's doing better than a CMO. How bad is that? So this is one of the reasons we're here is we get a lot of flack in marketing. And whether you're just coming up, you're new to marketing, you're kind of like, you're in there, you're in part out with your sleeves rolled up, building, you're trying to justify yourself, or you're running a marketing team, or you are the point of contact. You're the solo marketer at a company. You've got that lens on you. And the other challenge to that is, what do we got? We got COVID going on, right? It's not a dirty word. It's just sort of like it is. It is here. We know we have changes. We know different things are happening. And a lot of times what are companies doing? They're like, oh, let's cut budget. COVID time, let's cut budget. Where do they cut it from? People have this knee-jerk reaction to cut it from marketing. But as we're going to find out, that's actually a terrible idea. Professors have done studies and recursion analysis and all sorts of interesting things that just really proves that not only is a situation like COVID not the time to cut back on marketing, but actually the companies that don't, companies that maintain or actually invest in marketing end up being higher when you come out of this thing at the end. So it's like whatever the knee jerk is, the opposite is actually what's most healthy. But that's just, we're talking to the choir here, right? We're all probably on the same page with that. How do we talk internally? How do we defend ourselves during COVID? But also, how do we justify ourselves in the value that we bring so that marketing isn't the group that gets cut? Oh, yeah, things are not working well. Let's cut marketing. No, 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 no. Marketing is where you invest when the times get tough. But let's back that up, right? You can't just say some guy in a webinar said it. We got to have some facts. We got to have some data points. We've got to really get into this. And when I was thinking about this webinar, I got a little nervous. I got, what? Casey, you do these webinars all the time. You got nervous? And I did, because it's a really important question, right? Because this happens all the time. All these marketers get the axe during these times, and it's like, well, how do we fix that? And you know what? The answer isn't really that hard, which is crazy. We just need to do it. We need to roll up our sleeves and take some action on it. So one of the things I did is, not only do I have my story in here, because I realized when I was thinking about this and I was kind of doubting myself, I was like, actually, no, you've done this. You have done this. You have proven the value of marketing. Share your story with other people. So I'm going to do that today. And I also have stories of other people that have impressed the hell out of me. Either I talked to them on the podcast, or I've looked at their research, and they're amazing. And I want to cite them and point to them as people that you can also go listen to and read and learn from. But each one of them has a story. And if we can learn from stories, sometimes if I just gave you a checklist of 10 things to do that may or may not have an impact, but instead, if I just told you the experience I had, you might be able to draw your own conclusions. So that's what I'm going to try to do today. All right. So before we get into the agenda, before we get into who I am, what we're going to talk about, I think it'd be good to tell you my story. I went from being a marketing manager. I'd been in a couple places as a marketing manager, and I went from that to being the VP of marketing at a software company in less than 3 years. And really, I attribute it to 3 letters and a cool solution named Pardot down there. Any guesses on what those 3 letters are? Go ahead and throw them in the chat. 3 letters, they spell a word. It's kind of an acronym as well. And so long and the short, right around August, I started this new company. I'd been in an internal agency doing PPC campaigns. I'd been at another company as a marketing manager, marketing coordinator, fighting, and I'd always been kind of the activity marketer. Well, at least that's what people had put me in, right? Put Casey in the box of activity. I once had a CEO ask me, how many emails did you send this month? This was before August. So say like July of that year, they're saying, how many emails did you send this month? And I knew the answer was about 1 million. And they're like, next month, send 1.5 million, right? Be 50% busier. Be busy, and that justifies your value. But come to find out, everyone's busy. So how much does that justify you? It doesn't. That's the trap. That's where marketing can get stuck. And that's when we can get bumped in when the times get tough. If we're just trying to point to how busy we are. Because guess what? Everyone's busy. Product's busy. Support's busy. Sales is busy. Everyone's busy. So what does busy even mean? Nothing. It's all about tying to revenue, tying to deals. And yes, Carla, you got it. It's ROI. You too, Christina. ROI. I went from being a marketing manager to being a VP of marketing in way short of a time by doing one thing. I got Pardot. I brought it into all those companies. But the very first time I got it, I learned about it from scratch, and then I started tracking ROI on our marketing campaigns, understanding where did these good leads come from? And if we got them from a source that we spent money on, like we spent 5K on this event or something, well, how did that turn out? Did we actually convert those into business? And if we did, how much business? And doing that one simple thing, it changed the whole conversation. So instead of being, oh, well, Casey, I know you got 5K for that thing that I don't really understand, but I'd like to give you 4K. Is that okay? And you're just, and I don't know if you know, can anyone relate to that? Can anyone relate to a shrinking budget? If you can raise your hand in Zoom. I see those pop up. And then you could also say, yeah, totally. Me too. On the chat. I see that as well. Yeah, there you go, Nick. So the shrinking budgets happen all the time. And that's because we're looking at activity, because it's like, you're already busy. You're already busy doing all these activities. Why do I want to pay more money beyond you? Why don't you just do the busy and that makes it work, right? It's like, no, that's not what it is. It can never be about that. So the conversation shifted. I went, remember, because I was just a solo marketer and I was working, it was a small company. And so I was reporting right to the CEO. Um, and I showed him this and I showed him that the 5K had turned into something like 500K. See, obviously the leads got to sales, they closed them in certain ways and had some big customers come from them. And I remember his demeanor changed. And I know we had like a week ago talked about shrinking the budget. And then now he's like, okay, so that was 5K. He's like, what can you do with 10? I'm like, oh, this is good. But it's a problem of like, oh, what can you do with 15? Can I give you 20? How far does this go? And you're like, I have no idea how far this goes, but this sounds cool. But it's a good problem to have, right? So it immediately shifted the conversation by looking at ROI. Now I know you may know this, but I can't tell you how many part out accounts, marketing automation accounts I've seen where this isn't set up. And there's some confusion that comes later, and I'll talk to that as we go. But this was the secret for me. And so we're going to get through and we're going to talk through the agenda today and really understand how to address this. So not only my story, but other people's stories as well. So, hey, if you haven't met me, I'm Casey Cheshire. Nice to meet you all. Welcome. Just a couple numbers to introduce you to me by. You've already heard a little bit of my story. I went from marketing manager to a VP. Well, now I'm at this agency called Cheshire Impact. What happened? Well, I kept doing Pardot things and it kept working and I kept telling people about it. And eventually they said, can you help us out with that too? And I said, sure, let's go. And so that's where Cheshire Impact came from. But 13, I don't know if that number keeps growing. Is that the number of years I've been working with Pardot? I don't know. It keeps growing. I want it to shrink so I don't feel so old. 3,200, the number of Pardot implementations we've done at Cheshire Impact, really amazing crew. Me, I'm probably 100 of that. So the team itself is just amazing, really smart marketers that work with us. Less than 3 years. Again, that's that story of you too. I want you to have that. I want you to be able to do that, to go from being the activity marketer to being the ROI marketer and then experience that career explosion. Finally, 237. That's my podcast, the Hardcore Marketing Show. Has anyone seen that? Has anyone seen it? You can see it, you can hear it. It's got video on YouTube. It's also on all the platforms. Me and Joe Rogan on Spotify, holding it down. So 237. I've talked to 237 really, really smart people, and I've learned a lot from them. And I want you to benefit from that as well. So definitely go check that out. We got a couple stories today of people I've talked to recently. Oh, thanks, Parker. It says fine show, right on. And I want you to learn from these people as well. Finally, that's my book over there. If you didn't already know, I've got a book on Amazon called Marketing Automation Unleashed, and it's all the strategy that I know. And a lot of it came from interviews on these podcasts. So each chapter has several little blurbs that say, if you want to learn more about A/B testing or want to learn more about ROI tracking, some of the things we're going to be talking about today, listen to this podcast. So it all ties in together. Oh yeah, there's a link right there in the chat. All right, that's me. Let's talk about what we're going to be talking about today. And first of all, does it ever feel like a courtroom? Really, that was the theme that came to my mind. I didn't have a chance to go buy a wig and a gavel. But had we not been COVID, I might have done that maybe next time for a little bit of a fun theme. But does it ever feel like a courtroom? Does anyone ever feel like they're almost like a defendant in the marketing role, as opposed to being on the offensive where you're the prosecutor, you're making moves? No, you're the defendant. You're trying to explain, why you should be here. Otherwise they're going to boot you, right? It's like, why do we feel like that? We're on the back foot. So we're going to talk about today are some of the different areas and ideas how we can switch that around. So we, instead of being on the back foot, we can be on the front foot and really change that. So we're going to talk about measuring, communicating, aligning. And to be fair, anyone who's all about details, you may decide that we should align first, then communicate, then measure. But I put these in order of measure is what I did. That ROI story, we're going to go into details on how you can do that too. Share some stories around it. And then talking about communicating, some things I've learned from other people about how to communicate with leadership, how to communicate with the C-suite. What are they listening for? And then after that, we're going to talk about aligning our goals and our objectives to our leaders and to our company's objectives. Finally, just a couple quick hits on how do things change with COVID. I got some research that I put in there that you can take a little deep dive in. Finally, just a couple of resources summarized for you. We're going to highlight them throughout, but then summarize them down there. And then Q&A, we have it at the end. So how this works is Q&A is actually throughout this. So if you have a question at any time, you just throw it in that chat if you're here live. And at the end, what we do is we end the recording and then we have Q&A until everyone leaves, right? So we'll have Q&A all night if you have questions, or for 5 minutes, depending on how long it goes. And that's something special for those that attend. And if you're listening and you have questions, you can send me an email, casey@CheshireImpact.com, and I can answer it. All right, on with the show. Who are we? Who are we? I think it takes a little bit of just to take a step back. We're going to be defending ourselves. We're going to be justifying, and then going a step further to justifying and really pointing to the right things. So the rest of the company isn't like poo-pooing us, right? Like, hey, we're marketing. Sometimes, and you're probably like this too, you maybe feel like you never quite hit the standards that people have for you, never quite hit the standards that the CEO or other departments have for you. And you're always, again, on the back foot. So let's just take a second to think about who we are in marketing. Because I remember going in and presenting to a group and doing some strategy work with them, and they very much felt like they were the print shop for the sales team. Can anyone relate to that? You're the print shop. You're like the print shop at a college where they like just print textbooks and people buy them and that's it. And like, do you ever feel like you're that for the company? You're making things pretty. I know we had that survey at the beginning. Oh, choosing the colors and making things pretty, sending out gifts. Sometimes you can feel like that, but take a step back and think about it. Marketing is the only division, the only group, say, other than maybe finance and the CFO, maybe not even finance, that it extends across the entire company. Yes, finance extends across all the employees and customers, future and present, but they don't go talk to future customers, right? We're the only ones that are not only going across all the departments, but also the entire journey of the customer. Imagine that, right? Everything that everyone does, we kind of want to know about. Is the invoice being sent out with all the right branding and messaging? Are we acting like jerks on that, but we're acting like really nice people and not? Is it on brand? How are we acting? Are we being consistent across the whole board? What's that journey like? Are there friction points, right? Are we getting leads in, but are they converting here? It's almost like it covers everything. And so because of that, it's kind of the challenge. And there's a book. I don't know if anyone's read this. Has anyone read that book? Obstacle is the Way. It's very stoic, philosophical thought from ancient Greece. It's just the idea of if there's something in front of you, there's like a challenge in front of you, and it's the thing that's keeping you from doing something. That might be the thing that you need to do. That might be the challenge you need to tackle. Like, you know what? Everything's groovy here, but man, nobody thinks I do anything here in marketing. Well, maybe that's the challenge. Or in this case, we span the entire company. We span the entire customer journey. Man, that's a challenge. Maybe that challenge is the way we need to go. Maybe we need to push in harder, right? Lean in. Great book, right? Lean into those things. So if this is the challenge, maybe we need to push harder on it, own more of it, join more meetings about the entire journey. How can we do that? All access pass. We also, again, we mentioned this earlier, we have access to the audience no matter where they are, past, present, future, right? We want to talk to them. We want to get in their heads, understand what their problems are, their pains are. No other group in the entire company wants to do that. They have times and places. Sales wants to talk to them at a certain point. Customer support wants to talk to them at a certain point, right? Finance at a certain point. But we're like, we like to talk to you at every stage to find out what's in your mind. And on top of all of this, our group leads to revenue, right? And it's just kind of a double pun because we have leads that turn into revenue. Right? But not only do we generate leads and also generate demand and interest, but we can contribute to the bottom line by directly driving things. And in the B2C case, we are the end all be all of the revenue channel. So, man, we do a lot, right? We cover a lot. So I think a lot of times the biggest challenge, and when I talk to a lot of CMOs and I ask them, what keeps you up at night? They're like, focus. Focus is what keeps me up at night. Totally get that. One other quick slide just to kind of point out different areas that might all be swimming around your head. Sometimes if we present them all muddled together, that can be confusing to the other departments. So it makes sense just to kind of draw the circles around of what are the different areas I have, and then also where do I want to focus on? What are the different areas? Yes, I can do all these things, Maybe I don't have a team of 30 to actually tackle them, but it would be good. And again, why is a marketer telling marketers what marketers do? Because one, we may not be clear in what we do. It happens. We're very busy, right? We're so busy, we don't take a step back. But also, these are the kind of things you can offer your boss, offer your leadership, offer management, letting people know, by the way, this is actually what marketing is. And not in a condescending way, but just to say, here's some of the opportunities. Here's some of the ways I can help. So later on, and maybe you don't need it now, but later on, you had a meeting and CEO knows that you technically could dive into customer retention. Sure enough, right? A week later, he has a meeting with the CFO and customer retention is a problem. He's going to think of marketing, right? You plant that seed and now they're calling you up. So these are just different things you want to make sure you're presenting to the overall organization. All right, let's talk about measurement. Measurement. Yes. Who's with me? Who wants to measure marketing and prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt? Get our case thrown out of court, get us promotion. Who's with me? Throw up your hand in Zoom, say hi in the chat. Let's make it happen. I see a me. Yes. Yes. So, couple quick points on this story. And by the way, if you have any questions on this story, how did you do this? Right. Again, I'm trying to articulate with this experience that I had that I want you all to be able to experience. If you're already there, if you're already the VP of marketing, this is how you stay there. Right. This is how you make sure that tenure is not that lowest thing under the CHRO, which I don't even know is, right? You're less than some random C-suite role. No, this is how you become the trusted advisor. And we have a story coming up, which I'll talk about in a little bit after measurement, about someone who actually became the CEO's trusted advisor just by measuring. So let's do this. All right. ROI. Oh, awesome. Parker just said, just read Casey's book. It's all there. Thanks, dude. Chief Human Resources Officer. Thank you, Julie. You're probably like, I can't stand to hear him say this again one more time. So I've learned something today. I hope you will too. I hope I can teach it. Chief Human Resource Officer. Okay. So they get to last longer than marketing. That doesn't even seem right based on all the different things we get to do in marketing, but let's fix that here. Okay. So ROI, it's unavoidable. We have to prove this. We have to prove this. We have to show, we have to answer some questions, right? There's some questions on here. And by the way, this is a really cool chart. This is actually from our Salesforce reporting. And this is just one of the many little colorful charts. But colorful charts aside, we need to answer the core question, which is, do you know where your revenue driving leads come from? That's the core question. It's not which webinar are they most interested in to start with. And we're going to get to that. We do want to know if there's certain webinars that people like and if webinars are helping people. We know we have proven that these webinars lead to business. We've proven it. So we do them. Cool. ROI. But how do we find people to get to the webinar? That's the important part. That's the starting question. Do you know where your revenue driving leads come from? So let's talk through that a little bit, because eventually we're going to get to, do you know what campaigns get you the most business? Do you know what campaigns should be stopped? We're going to get to that too. Okay. Who's got a blog out here? We're about to have a blog battle. And those of you who join the CSI webinar, you may even know about this blog battle already. Does anyone have a blog? Who's got a blog? And if you have one, whether it's a company blog or even your personal blog, you could throw a link in the chat and totally promote that blog right here, right now. All right, let's do a battle of the blogs. Just created it. Sweet. You should share it in the chat. All right. Cheshire Impact, real story. Had 2 blogs at one particular time. By the way, we love content. I think we have like 3 now. But we love content. We love blogs. They're fantastic. So there's 2 examples. There's blog A and there's blog B. Try to look at the top part first, the top 3 bullets for each one, and try to decide with just the top 3 bullets, which one is the better investment. Blog A, insane visitors, bro. Insane. How much does it cost? Well, we're paying people. We're paying someone. We're paying a content writer to make sure she's writing that stuff down. $2,000 a month. You can insert any amount of money here. You're investing money. And by the way, this could be a blog. This could be an event. This could be anything. Cool. How many leads are we getting? Thousands, man. I feel like Bill and Ted. They're excellent adventure. By the way, has anyone seen the new Bill and Ted? And what did you think? Throw it in the chat. Make it happen. I digress. Okay, so the first blog, thousands of leads, man. Blog B, steady visitors, not the insane, right? Steady, right on, cool, man. It's like the 50-year-old at the young people's concert being like, I like this. This is groovy. I'm nodding my head. I'm not gonna mosh, but I'll nod my head. How much did it cost? Well, I say zero, but technically it costed internal time. So there was a cost to it, but it wasn't a financial like spend cost. It was people's time. So blog B, we were writing ourselves internally. Different team members were lending a blog post here and there. And it was great. So we just kind of like, but it was more on the side when they had time because sometimes they were busy. It was all good. Leads, hundreds or less, right? All good. Now, again, thumbs up or nodding at the concert, right? Kind of shifting back left and right. You're not moshing with B. So with if you just looked at the top bullets, which blog would you go with, guys? Which blog? Would you go with blog A or blog B? Which one would you rather have? Yes, blog A costs some money, but man, you get the insane visitors. Amber, you want blog B? Have you looked at the bottom? Have you looked at the bottom bullets? Well, you're right. If you look at the bottom bullets, yeah, I could hide them, but if you look at the bottom bullets, it's like a totally different story, right? Exactly, Lacey. Blog B has better prospects, way better. And so if you just did sort of standard Google Analytics, right, just a little UTM tracking, but maybe just you stopped there, you didn't use Pardot, didn't really track it all the way through to close one revenue. If you didn't have Pardot connected to a Salesforce, right, if you didn't have them tied together, or you didn't use opportunity, if you didn't use opportunity members, if you didn't tie them together, if you didn't use, create new lead, if you didn't use leads and have all these things connected, you wouldn't see the bottom bullets. If you didn't have the systems connected, you wouldn't see that. So, and it takes some time to filter in. And so what we did is we used different campaign tracking code for blog A versus blog B. Different tracking code. You can do that on different sites, microsites, all that. You can also, and we actually have blog A, blog B, and our website all had separate tracking codes. So you could see the difference. So obviously you can see blog A is not worth it. Does anyone want to buy blog A, by the way? Does anyone want to, it's only $2,000 a month. And you get nothing, or you get 2K, not a month either. It's just 2K. I don't remember how many months we ran this, right? So, but it's a good experiment, and it perfectly shows that big numbers at the beginning don't necessarily equal big numbers at the end. Okay. Now, what's most important is that blog B is working. Cool. But what also is important is that we stopped doing blog A. Here's the challenge we get in, right? And we never really talked about this in previous webinars. If you keep doing blog A without the tracking or even knowing the tracking, you're going to be sending what? How many leads? And someone said earlier, who said it? Better leads. So better, Lacey, better prospects are on blog B. But that also means, I'm kind of optimist, blog A has really terrible prospects. You're sending thousands, not just hundreds, thousands of terrible prospects to sales. Are they going to be a fan of us internally? Are they going to want to be on our team and maybe sign up to call people really quickly because we lead scored them and graded them? No, they're not in. They're out. They think we're idiots. They think we're idiots if we continue to do blog A. Now, we need to be able to do some testing and find things out. Totally. But definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Blog A, there's many reasons, wrong customer persona, all sorts of things, but blog A was not it. So we stopped doing it. That was important because what did that do? That freed up $2,000 in our budget that we could spend somewhere else. So a lot of times people get confused between first touch and multi-touch ROI. Why? Because multi-touch or ROI gets pushed by vendors, and it also there's flashy tools that show it. Hey, you get flashy tools with first touch. These are just concepts. But the challenge is now, especially with things like Connected Campaign. Has anyone set up Connected Campaign in Pardot? If you have, raise your hand. If you're proud that you finally got through that arduous process, or throw it in the chat. How painful was it to set up Connected Campaign? Or did my team help you? Either way, just because you have Connected Campaign set up doesn't end the problem that you still want to track your first touch. And you can add in your multi-touch, but make sure you're still tracking your first touch. And what is first touch? It's your source. It's your source. Real quick, we had a question from Adrian. How long did you measure these before determining that blog B was the best option? Great question. We basically ran this for just shy of a year. It was about, I think it was about 9 months. Because we wanted to give it a little time just in case of the sales cycle, right? So our sales cycle is pretty short here, a couple months, but some companies might have a longer sales cycle. So if your sales cycle is like 6 months, you got to give it a couple months plus 6 months to see what comes in because maybe they're just delayed. So we kind of were, it was still there. We didn't get rid of it. We were trying to see, will something eventually come in? And something eventually did, but it wasn't very much. That was a good question. On my list to do connected campaigns. Pam, don't be scared. We have webinars that are like what to do before connected campaigns. Don't do anything before listening to this or watching this. We've got blogs. We'll send you some stuff in email just so that you have all the right checklists, but it'll be good. It'll be totally cool. But when you connect them, what's going to happen is now you have multi-touch campaigns and first touch campaigns all blended together. And if you're not careful, you will lose them both and you will not be able to track anything and it won't all make sense. So what I want to say is multi-touch is cool. We're going to do that. We're going to tag stuff in campaigns, but first let's talk about lead source. Lead source. This is dating metaphor where you first met. How did you meet? You met at high school. You met at the dance, the audition for the play. How did you first meet? What was the source? Or in like lead terms, right? We met at Dreamforce. There was an event. A PPC ad is what I clicked on. I came via social. There's a tweet that brought me to this webinar. And so you have parent and child campaigns and Salesforce events. And then you might have Dreamforce 2019, Dreamforce 2021, fingers crossed, right? Those kind of things you have. Now, contrast marketing efforts. Marketing efforts are like the movies and the dates you had along the way. So we first met in high school, but then we went to a movie here. We went to a webinar together. We went to Italy. We did all this other stuff. And eventually we got married, right? Eventually the buyer bought from us. Those movies and dates, those are the multi-touch. Okay. Now the question is, are you tracking all the different options of how you first met and the movies and dates all jumbled together? Hopefully not. You can use different ways. And again, we have webinars on this topic, all like in detail on this, but suffice it to say, you need to keep these separate. Could be by campaign type. Don't want to get too techie on it, but like you can keep these things separate. So focus first on how did we first meet people? Here's why. Let's say everyone here on this webinar bought from Cheshire Impact tomorrow. Let's go. Cruise for everyone in the Bahamas. Let's make this happen. Okay. So let's say everyone made a purchase tomorrow, right? If we were only tracking the marketing effort or was confused, and so all we really had was that this webinar was great, we would say, oh my gosh, this webinar is fantastic. It brought a bunch of customers. They bought from us. Okay, cool. Let's go get more of those customers that love those webinars so we can get more business. And then we look and we go, oh, I don't know. I don't know where they came from. I just know that we did a webinar. Well, the thing is, people don't magically just come to your webinar, right? Everyone here today, you didn't wake up, unless I've perfected telepathy. You didn't just wake up and you're like, Casey's presenting today. I need to go to this webinar, this certain place and time, right? Like Field of Dreams or Close Encounters, right? No. You got an email, but email isn't even a campaign, right? How did we get your email? We didn't just magically get your email address, right? We're not like soothsayers reading tea leaves going, there's an @ sign here. There's a yahoo.com over here, right? No. It was probably something prior to that. How do we meet? Maybe Salesforce introduced you to us. Maybe we met at Dreamforce. Maybe there was a PPC ad you clicked on. Social media. Maybe one of your good friends did an implementation with us and introduced you. Those are all sources. And it's important to track those. So when we want to go back and get more people from those, we can say, cool. A lot of people went to the webinar. Most of them came from a PPC ad we ran. Okay, cool. Let's spend double as much on that PPC ad and get more people in. Okay, so now the reason we talk about it now in the context of justifying ourselves in the ecosystem in our organizations is that, and if everyone disagrees, feel free to disagree in the chat, but it's very hard to justify yourself based on the movies and the dates, right? Because you're saying we've influenced people to buy. Okay, you influence them how? And are you sure you influenced them, or was it because they met sales yesterday at the event, or they sales called them and that influenced them? Influence is very slippery. Matt Sweezy at Salesforce in the old days, he used to say, this is pre B2B MA and all these things. He used to say multi-touch ROI is BS. I think he actually used the words too, because it's so fluid and flexible. But first touch source is not. Now, arguably, it may be slightly inaccurate if somebody came in and somehow they met you and you didn't quite track it, but it's really, really close where you say, you know what? We met this person from this source, they bought, and you can show that to the leadership and say, spent $5,000 here, turned into $500,000 or $25,000, go. Okay, cool. Here's more money. Here's more money, because you're showing money goes in, money comes out. That's clean. If now with marketing efforts, you're saying people showed up and we spent our marketing time on them, all the team here, we all influenced them and they purchased. It'd be like, oh, cool. Thanks for helping. But it's not as strong. So that's why we got to make sure we start with first touch ROI. My story, all those, the under 3 years was not because I was doing multi-touch ROI. And really, you don't really have time to do multi-touch ROI until you are very secure with your sources and you have plenty of touches to track. And then you do multi-touch tracking. So we don't want to get distracted by that. It's possible. You can do it. You want to set up your campaigns to be able to enable you to see it, but make sure you have first touch tracking going on. Cool. Let's do it. On that note, Dave Matthews, Gray Street. Anyone? Are you with me? Bueller? There's a gray street, right? The multi-touch is kind of gray. It's a gray area. The other gray street is all these kind of things that are up in the air. Brand awareness, word of mouth, SEO. We can track some of these things, right? So I want to bring them up and say, oh, can you track this? Will it track? Will it track? Will it track? Well, guess what? Yeah, let's address what we thought was originally unquantifiable and quantify it. Brand awareness. What kind of stats can we look at? Whenever we can, let's try to have a stat associated with something. Yeah. What if the competition was better at influencing? Great question. What if the competitor is better at influencing the lead? How will you know that? Right? You would know that really for sure. The only way you would know that is if you did, and these are great to do. You would know that if you did a post opportunity conversation. And there's some great vendors. There's some great people that I know, experts that'll actually, you give them a list, they'll call both customers that you won and customers you lost and ask them, what's up? And they tell these third parties because they're just happy to share the process usually. They might share that something went on here and there, but it's harder to tell, right? So influencing is great, but influencing is it's so fickle. And here's a good example. Went to Dreamforce. They met you at Dreamforce. Their badge was scanned. And then they had a really good conversation, or they went out to a dinner with sales. Dinner. Then they went drinking all night, not tracked, right? They partied all night. Could happen. Dreamforce 2021. And then on Monday, marketing sent an email to everyone saying, met you at Dreamforce, how you doing? And then the person bought. If you give all the influence, where do you give it to? How do you give it to them on scale? You could over time see if different things were happening. But one particular example, there was a company that did travel. I can't remember if it was like a TripAdvisor or something to that effect. They were a travel company, and if sometimes planes were canceled, right? Planes get rescheduled, planes get canceled, flights get canceled. And so every time a flight was canceled, they'd get an email saying, your flight was canceled, please rebook. And they tagged marketing with that. And so then if you looked at the influence, you would say, marketing has influenced millions of deals. Well, kind of, but it was also an operational email just to let people know their flights were canceled. They needed to rebook them, right? So there's all these sort of slippery slopes, and you can sort them out with your team for sure, and with the organization. So with some of the techniques we're going to talk about in a second, you can sort them out, but it gets tricky. And so the idea is focused first on first touch, and then when you have time, you can go to multi-touch. but you can justify yourself. You can buy yourself the time by doing the first touch, knowing where they came from, so you can go get more, asking for more budget to go get more of these people, as opposed to asking for more budget because you've influenced them along the way. You see how it's a harder argument. Hey, I've influenced these people into sales. Prove it. Well, I know they attended the webinar. Do they like it? I don't know. They got our emails. Sales influenced them too. Like, it's really hard to tell. Now, over time, you can show, well, you know what? We can put people down this path and down this path. You can be specific about it, and you can A/B test, and that kind of you can start showing things that way. But it takes a lot of data. So early on, to keep your jobs, keep your budget, to grow your budget, it's, I got this many people from this source. I'm going to go after this other source. This one didn't work. I'm calling it. We spent 4K, but we learned a lot, and we're going to repurpose that 4K to this other source. And that's a mature conversation that the CEOs want to hear. All right, communicating. I'm going to get going too, because there's a lot to say, and there's some really good stories I want to share with you. So this just kind of highlights that, yeah. There's other people. There's not just the CEO. There's other people, the CFO, and I've learned about the CHRO now. The CIO, the head of IT, the head of finance, and the head of it. We could do a webinar on each one of these things. And if you're interested, we can. But the idea of how do you align with the CFO? You get better at your numbers. You know what you're talking about with your numbers. When you say ROI, you mean it. It's an actual mathematical term, and you've used it correctly, right? And maybe you ask them, hey, let's align ourselves. Let's align ourselves. Let's talk budget. Let's talk model. CEO, what do they want to hear, right? They want to hear about growth. They want to hear about the company's goals and how you're going to help fulfill them. COO, how's the customer experience, right? There's different areas, there's different aspects, but each one of these, we have to have a thought, whether it's a department or the department head, how do they think about marketing? And so one of the things that I had a chance to talk with Maria Pergolino, brilliant conversation on the podcast. It'll be out soon, I believe. I don't think it's out yet. Maybe it is. Maybe it is. I don't think it's out yet. But if it is, a link will magically show up in the chat. She talked about the 10 things a CEO should and should not expect from the CMO. And you can substitute CEO with your boss, or, head of the company, or owner, or even what the company should expect from marketing, right? Great list. I'll just call out a couple things here so we keep moving. But one of the things, and you can see there's actually a SaaStr interview with her, where you get the entire transcript down below, and that's where this list comes from, and also catching her on the podcast. Brilliant conversation. But one of the things I really liked about what she talked about was choosing a channel to dominate. We talked earlier about focus, how there's all these different things marketing can do. The obstacle is the way. The obstacle is we can lose focus. So we have to focus. That has to be the way. Pick a channel and dominate it. I love that idea, because it says, okay, don't try to be everything to everyone on every channel. Find the channel using first touch ROI that gives you the best return, and go hard on that one. Push. See how many more leads you can get from it. See how much better qualified leads you can get from it. So before expanding to other horizons and trying new things, really focus on that first marketing channel to dominate it. And then maybe add a second once you've exhausted all the capabilities on that first channel and it's just cranking. So not yet. Stay tuned. Interview transcript. Perfect. There's some links right there in the chat. All right. Next, it's really important to think about internally advocate for the marketing team for what you're doing. We talked about those different groups and what they're looking for. You want to speak to them in their language, just like we do in marketing. Who's your segment? Who's your customer? What are their pain points? How can you solve them? How can your company solve them, right? Same thing. What's the department? What are their pain points? How can you help solve them? Talk to them in their language, not in your own. We just rinse and repeat the cycle for all the different members of the C-suite, especially the CEO, getting to understand, what is this challenge? Is this challenge the brand? Is this challenge? And maybe there's an interesting thing. He wants to be able to swoop into a particular analyst meeting and to be known, or you get fired if you don't include us in the RFP, right? Whatever his particular desire or strategic vision is, that's the challenge. The obstacle's the way. Go for it. Deliver on your promises. Has anyone listened to this? Daryl Prill, he is one of my favorite humans. He was on the Hardcore Marketing Show twice. it's kind of funny. His picture changes between the two. I think he looks better now, but episode 78, he came in as the CMO at VanillaSoft. Episode 215, he's now the CRO, as in Chief Revenue Officer, as in head of marketing and sales. So he started out just head of marketing. And then over the course between when I talked to him and I talked to him again, not only did he become head of marketing, but also head of sales and made the CRO, head of both marketing and sales. Brilliant. He talks through his entire story on episode 215. Episode 78 talks about his marketing journey and his marketing strategies. 215 is the process of how he ended up taking over sales. And it wasn't this like Game of Thrones thing. Well, it kind of sounded a little bit like it. But more importantly, what it was service level agreements. Has anyone heard of service level agreements? Or does anyone actually have any with the organization? SLAs, service level agreements. Do you have any with sales? If anyone has any, just go ahead and put like in chat, like what the agreement might be. If you have one, or nope, don't have them, or don't even know what they are. So just go ahead and throw that in the chat. Cool. SLAs, I had taken them for granted. I had heard about it. I've been talking about it for like 6 years. But what they are, service level agreement, is like a peace treaty with another department. Specifically, they mostly get brought up in the terms of marketing and sales alignment. Here's an agreement. Marketing will not send shitty leads to sales. In exchange, sales will call every lead within 24 hours or 3 hours or whatever. It's a peace treaty, right? On one side is what marketing swears to do. We will always do this. On the other side, sales is saying we will do this. So marketing's might be, and Daryl had these built out, and he had sales agreement. They actually had a little thing. I don't know if they signed it, but it was like ratified, right? Like a peace agreement between two countries, two different departments with different interests, but they're aligning their interests in the same direction. And they're saying, not only are we going to align our same direction, but we're agreeing, we're promising to do this as a part of our um, part of the bargain. We're going to do this. So he had things of like lead quality, lead quantity, certain delivery things, kind of information you would know about a lead before it gets sent over to sales. Different things are detailed out. Again, episode 215. It was a great conversation. He just told us everything. And so he had all these things laid out, and then sales would call X, Y, by X, Y, and Z. They would follow up this many times. They would take this kind of action, and they would do this other action if it really didn't work out. If it did, they'd take this action, right? And it's all good. They agreed to do that, but guess what? Sales didn't keep up their end of the agreement. Marketing did. So CEO's like, something's not working here, right? We're not getting to the number we're looking to get to. What's going on? If you don't have SLAs, what happens? Sales goes, these guys send terrible leads, right? And what do you have to show for it? No, we've influenced these deals, and no. Nope. You have a first touch ROI source that's showing that you're getting leads from the right place, and you have SLAs and it could be as simple as one liner. We agreed to do this. We agreed to do this, and you agreed to do this. It's a way of getting sales to agree to do something. Well, Daryl had a meeting with CEO, and he's like, here's all the SLAs we've agreed to. These are the things we've had with sales, and we've done each and every one of them. And he's looking at the sales side. The CEO's looking at the sales side, and something to the effect of sales was not following up to their end of the agreement. It's like, how can you not, right? So I don't know the rest of the story. He gets into a little bit, but end of the day, it was like that sales leader is not working out. Daryl, I trust you. You see it in here. Always hold up your end of the bargain. You do what you say and say what you do. Can you please run sales too? And he was like, that sounds cool. Let's do it. And now he's like, wow, there's a lot of work, but he's an awesome guy. So go listen and learn from him, and consider what might be a simple service level agreement. You don't need to necessarily Game of Thrones take over sales just yet. You can if you want to, but think about what's a simple agreement where we promise to do X, Y, and Z, and then you got to hold it up. And if you don't follow up, sales can call you on that BS, and you're like, "Our bad, we got to fix that," right? So you hold up your side, they hold up their side. It's like a respectful way of having a sort of a mutual agreement between the two groups. So SLAs, fantastic. Not only are they just simple stuff, but you can take it to the next level, and SLAs can protect you internally. All right. Coming up at the end, real quick, Strategic, one of the most used words in marketing. I would normally ask you for a definition, but guess what? In the book, I was doing research for the book and I looked up the word strategic, looked up strategy. We use it all the time. What does it even mean? Let's get strategic on this. Right? We use it all the time. Guys, we need to get strategic. And I looked it up. It's very simple. Have an objective and create a plan to accomplish the objective. That's being strategic. So now, if you don't have an objective, you're not being strategic. If you don't have a plan, you're not being strategic. So we need to make sure we're being strategic. But all it really means is make sure you have an objective and then go after it. Well, there's something interesting to demonstrate here. Does anyone recognize this campaign? Where's the beef? Has anyone seen this? And who launched this? What brand launched this? And this would be our oh, you're old enough. I see Wendy's question mark. Wendy's? Are we sure? Anyone else? Burger King, maybe? The beef industry. Nice one. Nice one. Ooh, Wendy's. Clarapella Wendy's. Nice. Yes, it's Wendy's. Wendy's launched this campaign and it was all about saying like all these other people, all these other brands, they're terrible. We're better. We're Wendy's. And I got to tell you, I had a most brilliant conversation the other day, and this episode just came out. It's live now on the website, episode 237. I had an interview with Brandon Roten, and he was the VP of marketing formerly. Now he's gone on to Papa John's and Potbelly and other places. He's got a new one coming up. We're waiting to see where he's going to go. He was at Wendy's, and he created the Snarky Wendy's Twitter campaign. Does anyone know about that? If you know about that, throw it out there. He's the guy. He's the guy that created Snarky Wendy's. And I put some comments down here below. But while you're reading those, the reason I asked you about where's the beef, which a lot of us seem to know about, only ran for a month because internally everyone was too nervous that it was too scandalous to ask where's the beef, right? It was too scandalous. So it only ran for a month, yet we remember it forever. I don't even think I ever saw it. I just know about it, right? So it ran for a month, but that's it. That's that internal battle. So we're not alone. We've always been going through this. And yeah, one of the best campaigns in the world that's stuck in our brains forever only ran for a month because internally people got scared. Well, many years later, 2011, Brandon joins Wendy's, and guess what? 2011, they had no digital marketing. 2011, this is not 1991, 2011. This is 2011. Still television, still display ads, on display ads, still billboards. They're behind. And we said restaurants are typically behind. But he came in and he saw that, hey, Wendy's has always been a challenger. They're always kind of been in like Dave's personality, which was like, guys, the reason he made Wendy's is because he's like, McDonald's sucks. We got to make a new place, right? So that's where Wendy's came. It's in its blood. It's in its history. That where's the beef has always been a part of that. So he's like, we need to go after that. Now, he was very clear. And actually, his myth on the show was not every company should do social media. And he's like, look, for Wendy's, this particular thing was the right call, but it was based on an objective we were trying to get to. We were trying to reestablish the challenger position in the marketplace, calling McDonald's on their BS, calling all these other brands on their poor quality. Hey, we're fresh, never frozen. All right. So that was the objective. The Twitter was only one particular tactic, right? It's a cool one. It was fun asking him about it, but he's like, it's only one tactic of the whole thing. But what's most important is there was an objective behind it. And you can see some of the tweets on here. Fantastic. Hey, going to In-N-Out. What should I get? Out. Now, Black Friday, this one right here, McDonald's messed up their tweet. They forgot to fill in the link, right? So it was a so Wendy's calls them on it and they're like, your tweets are as broken as your ice cream machines. Brilliant. The burn, right? Well, guess what? Not everyone took to these in the establishment. And we talked about how did you get these two? Because obviously the end result is it was widely successful. It reestablished Wendy's. Wendy's had been going downhill for a decade. And since this turnaround, well, he was there. He won't take credit for all of it, but believe me, he was the impetus. He got them all in all sorts of different digital aspects. They've been going something like 30 quarters of growth. since then. Way to go, Wendy's, right? And he said, look, I came at it with an objective. And so when people were asking me, like people would get these tweets and be like, this isn't us, this is mean, right? They don't get the humor. They don't get it. Well, what did he have for defense? And this was key. And this was the one thing I wanted to impart with you. He had an objective, he had history, and he had early results. The objective was we're trying to reestablish the challenger. The history was where's the beef? Kicked serious ass. Okay. And some of these other things really were successful when we went on our core message of who we are. We're the challenger brand. And we had some early results that showed promising things. Because of that, no one shut it down. It didn't act like, where's the beef and only show up for a month. He got it to go and go and go. Eventually transition and do cool things with it. But that was the way he did it. So cool. Defend yourself with objectives, history, early results, and tie your objectives to the objectives of the company as well and to the brand. That's key. All right, quick note on COVID, and we'll get out of here because it's 5:00 somewhere. It's 5:00 somewhere. COVID. Really cool guy, very smart professional professor of marketing. I have not talked to him on the podcast, but maybe I should. Now I'm inspired. Gerard had a really cool research paper. I read some really good synopsises of it. He looked at 40 related studies. And these are some stats. Again, screenshot it, grab the recording. These are things you can use with powers that be. So it's not like I just heard it from Casey or something like that. This is like real stuff. Cutting back on marketing dollars hurts. It hurts sales during and after. So it's the exact wrong thing to do, right? And also, it's interesting. Businesses that maintain or expand, they end up with higher sales, higher market share, higher earnings during and after. And the final one, which is interesting, is that the benefits gained actually last for several years beyond when the challenge ends. So let's say COVID, we're all vaccinated in a couple months, fingers crossed, right? And then it's like, whoa, we're still the market leader. We're growing, we're growing, we're growing. And they actually cited some cases like where, next slide here. And so there's actually opportunity. Now, when I say COVID opportunities, I'm not saying capitalize on COVID because that's just gross. What I'm saying is we've got changes in market. We've got disruptions. We've got, whether you want to call it a recession or we've got changes in the marketplace. It's an opportunity to reach more customers. So that's my clarity on the opportunity side. We definitely don't want to be sending out those COVID emails like we used to get back in May. But what this is a good example. Again, thinking about Brandon. He had objective, he had history, and had early results. Objective, cool. History. History says, guess what? Kellogg crushed Post, right? During the Great Depression. And during the 2000 recession, Target crushed, and they took out a lot of other people during that. A lot of those department stores closed down. Target just standing strong. So it's an opportunity. You can point to previous successes, either in your own company or other places. All right, quick resources, and then we'll get to Q&A, everyone. Here are the resources. Here's just a list of the different shows. Maria's coming up, but those are the other episodes to just write down and check out. Finally, the book, Marketing Automation Unleashed, is on Amazon. And if you have it, I would love a review. Winky face, smile. And then finally, we have 2 other webinars with deep dives specifically into Pardot. Like if you're like, I want to now build this into Pardot, check out these other webinars. We get deep onto the actual tech, the tools, and do that. We also have the Pardot Life Hacks user group, which you should join for the click-by-click, even deeper level tech side. And we're just here for you. So with that, Q&A, there's my email for everyone here now and listening. We will end the recording, and we will also get to everyone's questions.